Hey guys, how you doing? And welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. This is Dr. Mike Ronsisvalle. Super glad you are joining me again. I hope you guys are enjoying the Live Well coaching platform. I can tell you this much. I think I say this every time. I love it. I love being able to speak into you guys at least once a week. So thanks for being here. Hope that Wellness Wednesday is just becoming a part of your rhythm and part of your cadence for your week and your sort of month, as you just sort of set aside times to begin to look at how you can get healthy and stay healthy and live well. That's really what Live Well is all about, right? Helping people get healthy, stay healthy, and live well. So here we are once again. I'm trying to figure out how I can make this stuff, this time that we spend together, as practical as possible. And so you'll see as we go through these different topics every Wednesday, trying to kind of hit things that we're all dealing with. And so I was preparing for today, trying to think through, okay, what can I give folks that are a part of this platform that need to kind of get information and tools to increase their mental health wellness. And man, anxiety just always comes up for me. Always a piece of the puzzle, because I don't know, I find in the clinics, and the Live Well clinics especially, that anxiety is almost always a part of the clinical picture on some level. And it's not just Live Well clinics, actually. I think it's everywhere. What we've seen as clinicians is just this explosion of anxiety and stress over the past maybe 10 years, to where now we see people over and over and over again that are struggling with diagnosable anxiety disorders. And that's different. That would not have been the case 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I would say it's actually unusual for a child or an adolescent to have an anxiety disorder. You know, that would happen, but man, it was not typical. Now, not unusual at all. 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, to have diagnosable anxiety disorders. So it's incredibly common, and I think in some ways our culture is a part of it. People ask me all the time, what's going on? Why is anxiety so bad now versus 10 years ago? I had a guy, as I was giving a talk the other day, he said, well, isn't it just that we are more aware of it as a culture, and that's why the anxiety is so quote unquote bad? It's not really worse, it's just that we're looking for it, and because we're looking for it, we can see it now. 1000% not true. I think that's a part of the process. Obviously, mental health is just more on the table, so we're talking about it more. People are willing to get some things that are going on inside of them out on the table. So clearly, yes, we are more aware, and that awareness increases the rates of diagnosis. I get that. However, our culture's set up differently. We're doing life differently than we've ever done it. Think about the technology that you're exposed to. Just this one little piece of the world that we all have to deal with. It has changed everything in 10 years. I was thinking the other day, my iPhone, which I love, like it's with me all the time. Isn't it crazy? Like I'm addicted to it. Only came out in, I think it was 2008. You guys comment, put in the comments whether I'm right. I think it's 2008 that they came out with like the touchscreen iPhone. Totally changed everything, right? 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was a younger man, let's put it that way, didn't have to deal with any of these pressures, right? My wife and I were dating. We weren't bombarded with all the images and things. Now we're literally wiring our brains to react and respond to stimuli and to crave stimuli. Think about how many times that you're waiting for someone at a restaurant, or you're going to meet them out. How many times do you start to pursue stimulation from your phone? Now, I'll tell you what I do. If I have a second and I'm waiting for someone at a restaurant, I do not sit there and just like people watch and look around and kind of notice people and maybe talk to somebody. That'd be crazy, right? Never. Do you know what I do? Probably the same thing you do. Pick up my phone. I'm gonna start looking, man. I'm gonna start, what's going on? My eyes are down. 1,000%. I'm checking email. I'm looking for text. If there's no email or text to read, I'm gonna open Twitter. What's happening? I got a free second. I crave it. Our brains crave it. It's made us smarter. It's made us more aware of the world. We have our fingertips on information that we never had. All that is true, and that's the beautiful, incredible blessing of this technology. But simultaneously, it is training our brains to be in a high state of alert. It's like your brain is always looking for that rush, right? Like the dopamine. And our kids have it worse because they're digital natives. So we grew up and we had the ability to, look around and, I don't know, catch lizards or what did I do at 8? That kind of thing. That's what I did. Get a BB gun and shoot stuff. That's what I was doing at 8 years old. Now kids are like literally their brains are getting wired from very, very early ages to pursue stimulation, to only be satiated if there's tons of stimulation. So that's why our kids are struggling. That's why you're struggling, is because we now live in a world where the things that we are exposed to literally create anxious brains that are always looking for more, always looking for more. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about because you spend a lot of your day looking for more dopamine, looking for more stimulation. It is pervasive. We are all dealing with it, and that's why anxiety's gotten so bad. So how bad is it? If you want to know the truth, I mean, is it clinical enough for me to say really bad? Probably not. 20% of the population right now is diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Put your head around that for a minute. So you're going to walk in the mall later on tonight, or you're going to go to dinner, look around. If you work in a big office, take a walk around today. If you see 100 people, 20 of them are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. That doesn't mean 20 of them are struggling with an anxious moment or chronic stress. Or 20% have diagnosable anxiety disorders. Wild. We've never had another moment in our history where that percentage has been so high. Females are more prone than males. I actually think, I got it down here on my phone. Let's see, females were 23, almost 24% of females have a diagnosable anxiety disorder. It's crazy. It's about 14% of men, 15% of men. So you can see why we land on 19, 20% of the population having an anxiety disorder. So if you're female, you have about a 10% greater likelihood that you have this diagnosable anxiety disorder. But we're seeing more and more and more and more guys show up in our offices that have these kind of symptoms that qualify them for a real diagnosis. So there's that. And then you add to that the cost. Like what is the cost of all this anxiety? Well, I mean, some of the numbers, and these are conservative numbers, it's around $280 billion that anxiety costs us, and that's the economic impact annually. 280 billion. I wrote a book, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, about stress and anxiety, and I remember, I think the figure at that point was 120 billion. And when I would talk about it, and I'd go give talks or do interviews about my book, I remember saying that number, and I thought it was astronomical. I felt weird saying it because I'm like, man, that's a lot of money that we're kind of linking back to issues related to anxiety. Now the number's $580 billion a year. The cost is just so high for us, but it's more than just money, right? Your anxiety is costing you relationships. And if it's not cost you a relationship, it's probably cost you at least some quality in the relationships that you have. It's cost some people their job. Like you're just so stressed out and overwhelmed that you can't function as a professional or as an employee. You lose it. You can't fulfill your daily roles. And the list goes on and on, right? Think about what it costs some people their sexual health. In order to even have like a sexuality and to feel connected to your sexual being, you have to have some measure of peace, right? Like even the sexual response of a female or a male, it requires some measure of peace. If you're super stressed out, you can't even perform sexually. Guys know this better than females, right? Get super stressed out, can't perform. So it costs us sexually, it costs us physically. Do you know that some studies show that 90% of visits to the healthcare provider are for reasons ultimately related to stress and anxiety? 90% of visits to like general practitioners are for reasons ultimately rooted in stress and anxiety. Think of a major disease that we struggle with culturally. Like what are the big killers? Like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity. Like these are the things that, man, we've all got to start thinking about, right? Because it's getting worse and worse and worse. Every one of those diseases has an etiology related to anxiety, meaning one of the causes, one of the reasons that you struggle with heart disease or you have cancer is because of stress and anxiety. This is not my opinion. It's not my idea. This is rooted in data. So when you think about the cost, you have to look beyond just the financial burden that stress and anxiety cause for our culture, and it's a lot. It's all these other pieces, even down to like literally your physical health. So the stakes are high. That's what I'm trying to say. We've got to figure out culturally how to deal with this. And I want you guys to know how to deal with it as individuals. Apart from what we do with it as a culture, man, we've got to know what to do in order to mitigate the impact of anxiety in our life. So we don't have a ton of time on this Wellness Wednesday, right? I at least want to give you some starter skills, right, for what you can do to deal with stress and anxiety. And then at the end, I'll point you to some other resources that will give you much more in-depth strategies and ways that you can cope. But I want to give you some things, just like the basics of anxiety management today, all right? So we'll start with a discussion about what anxiety really is. I think that's important for you guys to understand what's actually happening. Anxiety is not out there. It's in us. Does that make sense? A lot of people would say, oh man, my kids make me so anxious, or my job makes me so, it's such an anxiety provoking place for me to be, or my marriage, man, Mike, if you could meet my wife or my husband, you would totally get why I'm anxious. It may be, you might be right there, but that tendency to think that anxiety's out there misses the point, because anxiety is not a sick kid or an angry boss or a difficult marriage. Anxiety is something that happens physically in your body when you perceive that a situation is dangerous or out of your control. I'll give you an example. If we were to go walk in the little preserve by our offices here in Viera, and we ran across a rattlesnake, instantly, in that moment, you and I are going to we're going to sense danger, right? We're in danger. And when that happens, our frontal lobes are going to shut down. This is a God-given response. Your frontal lobe is going to shut down, and your amygdala, which is the fear threat center of your brain, is going to start being very activated. It's going to actually hijack your whole brain, because as your frontal lobe shuts down, you're losing the idea to rationally think about what's going to happen next. Right? The frontal lobe is judgment, reasoning, if-then contingencies. If I do this now, this will happen later. It's where creativity lives. It's where hope lives. Hope for the future. That lives in your frontal lobe. In that moment, when you sense that you're in danger, that part of your brain, dormant. Like there's nothing going on there. And that's why we sometimes repeat the same negative behaviors over and over and over again when we're anxious and stressed. So think about it. Let's go back to your marriage, right? Why do you say the same stupid stuff all the time that you know you shouldn't say with your spouse during an argument? Because you want to sabotage yourself? Because you just can't wait to make things worse? No. 1000% no. You do it because your frontal lobe shut down, you're freaking out, and you start yelling, you like react. And the reason you're reacting is because that amygdala, that's the size of an almond, it's indirectly releasing adrenaline and cortisol. Like it's communicating with other systems in your brain and your body. The stress hormones wash over your whole body. And it has this impact on you physiologically. So what you'll see? You'll see your blood pressure rise. You'll see your heart rate go up. You see your rate of respiration skyrocket, right? You're trying to get more oxygen in your blood. Like, man, this is danger. Why do you want more oxygen? Because you've got to get all that energy to the major systems of your body to respond to danger. So we're walking through the preserve. We see the rattlesnake. Man, all this starts to happen. My frontal lobe shut down, so I'm not saying, hey, check out the amazing coloring of the face and right behind the fangs. No, it's just like, man, get a stick, get a rock, jump out of the way. So we're stronger. You've heard of people doing amazing things when they're in these really traumatic situations, like lifting up a car to get their wounded friend out from underneath. That's how they do that. It's because all the blood is rushing to their heart, their muscles. They're in danger. We're in danger. That's what anxiety is supposed to do for us. But that fire alarm is what I call it sometimes. That system, that amygdala that's just been activated is basically putting you in a situation where you can't think clearly. You can't think rationally, and you're just reacting. And if you're dealing with a car accident or a rattlesnake in the woods, or someone's going to mug you on the streets of New York City, you want that. You want your amygdala to hijack your brain. But the problem is that we're living minute by minute, moment by moment, as a culture in this state of high alert. And we're not even really thinking. We can't rationally process what we should do next because we're so out of our minds with stress. And we can't creatively think about how to solve the problems that we encounter every day. All right, so I hope you're seeing why anxiety is so destructive. It literally is keeping you from thinking. It's keeping you from a rational thought. The thing that makes you human, it's preventing in that moment. So, of course, it's destructive. Of course, it creates all this havoc and chaos in our life. So what do? How do you calm this process down? How can you begin to calm the amygdala down and bring the frontal lobe back online, minute by minute, moment by moment. I'm going to give you some strategies that you can start to employ that I think you're going to be surprised by how effective this can actually be if you're willing to practice it. So, all right, what's strategy number one to turn the amygdala off, turn the frontal lobe back on in your brain, and crush the power of anxiety in a moment? Number one, you've got to figure out how to ground yourself in reality. Because what is anxiety doing? It's getting you oriented towards the future, right? The anxiety has created all this adrenaline and cortisol in your body, in you, not out there, it's in you. You become obsessed with like protecting yourself, fighting back, coming against the threat in your environment. And the more you do that, the more you're trying to anticipate like kind of what's going to happen next, right? I'm scared. So what's going to happen next? Because I've got to prepare. I'm going to size up the situation, understand what the situation requires, create a relevant response, get a desired outcome. That's what we do in those moments, right? And the more you live in like the outcomes, the more you live in what happens next, the more you live in the future, the less you're living right here, right now. Make sense? So that's why it's so important. If you want to manage anxiety, you've got to get very serious about training your brain to get out of the future and to focus right here, right now. So I had someone in my office, this is years ago actually, and man, this lady just started having a massive panic attack right in my office. I'm telling you, she stood up off the couch. She's like, I can't be in here anymore. I've got to move. And of course, you know, I know exactly what's happening, right? So I spring into action. I'm like, okay, come with me. We're going to walk outside. So we got in nature. That's huge for some of you. It's incredibly grounding just to get outside of the building and in God's creation, right? So we walk out the front door of my office, and she's breathing heavy. She's like, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. Like it's just like all this is happening in front of me. People are like, what's going on? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, we're fine. Trust me, I've got this. So what I do is I take her out in the parking lot. I get her away from everybody. And then I say, hey, look in the sky right now. Put your eyes on the sky. And she's, I can't. I forced her, like, hey, look at the sky right now. Now I want you to describe the clouds. Describe everything you can about the clouds that you see in the sky. And she starts, you know, as good as she can. She starts to say, okay, they're white. One is big. The other one's smaller. The one looks like it's curved on the side. And the more she started to describe what she saw in the sky and kind of the contrast between the white clouds and the blue sky and how they were formed, and the more grounded she became in that moment. And you would be shocked at what happened in a matter of maybe 3 minutes. This lady went from a full-on panic attack to rationally communicating to me, here's what I see before me. And I was able to get her grounded in reality, right here, right now. Don't live in the future. Don't live in what's going to happen next. Don't live in, you know, what that person might say. You know, if you're socially anxious, if I go walk in that Chili's and I start talking, well, are they going to think badly of me? Am I dressed appropriately? Am I having a bad hair day? All that's in the future. That's where anxiety lives, is in what happens next. Your job is to ground yourself in right here, right now. I know it's weird, it's hard for us because it feels, I don't know, touchy-feely. I told you guys this before, I think on Wellness Wednesday. When this all started, maybe 15, 20 years ago in the research, I was just skeptical because it felt so touchy-feely. I was like, I don't know that I can really attach to this as a clinician. It just felt so weird. Take some deep breaths, you know, that sort of thing. But guys, I'm telling you, the data is strong. My experience with it is amazing. It actually works. I know you might think this is hokey. You have to figure out how to ground yourself in a moment, right? How do I get right here, right now? Because that's going to get you away from anxiety. So, give you an idea of what you can do to do this, and this is, I like this actually. If you really want to ground yourself, look for 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you can taste. You might want to back this video up. You might want to write those down. And I would challenge you, if you're having an anxious moment, just say, okay, let me get a piece of paper. Let me get my phone out. What's 5 things I see right now? Right here, right now. What do I see? What's before me? I see a door. I see a computer monitor. I see my son. I see whatever. What's 4 things you can touch? Touch them, right? I can touch my phone. Don't look at it or open it because that'll make your anxiety worse. But I can touch my phone, right? I can touch this microphone. I can literally feel it. I can touch this chair that my body's sitting in. What are 4 things you can touch? What are 3 things you hear? I hear the buzz of the air conditioner right now. I hear people talking in the other room, like this low murmur. What are 3 things you can hear? What are 2 things you can smell? Well, that's tougher, right? You're going to have to be intentional about this. Go to the refrigerator, grab some strawberries or blueberries or milk. It doesn't matter. Smell it. Like literally, get some peanut butter, smell it. Get some perfume, smell it. Light a candle, smell it. That's happening right here, right now. Do you understand? It works against anxiety. It shuts the amygdala down. What's 1 thing I can taste? Get a mint, pop it in your mouth. Just let yourself taste it. Have the experience of tasting a piece of chocolate. Doesn't matter. Why? Because it's right here. And you'll be shocked at how that turns the amygdala off, and slowly, just like that lady in my parking lot, your frontal lobe starts to come back online. Going through the process of doing those things activates your frontal lobe. Number 1, you want to get through anxiety and stress. Ground yourself. Number 2, you've got to learn how to breathe. All right, so we already said that the amygdala will activate this characteristic physiological response, right? It indirectly, not directly, but indirectly releases cortisol and adrenaline, runs through your entire body, causes the blood pressure to go up, causes you to start breathing quickly, causes your heart rate to go up, your stomach's hurting, your chest is tight. That's all an artifact of these stress hormones. If you learn how to breathe and breathe through that stress response in your body, you can turn it off. Now, you're never going to do that if you're not grounded. If you're still living in the future and kind of obsessing in the moment in your mind about what does this person think about me, you're never going to be able to breathe, right? So ground yourself first, but then allow yourself to say, okay, let me begin to focus on just taking some deep breaths. And if you can have some deep breaths through your diaphragm, slow everything down, you can learn to turn your amygdala off. You can exert conscious control over this thing that just happened to you unconsciously. You didn't turn your amygdala on consciously. It's not like, oh, I'm feeling like this is a stressful situation, or I'm at risk or vulnerable, so I should turn my amygdala on. It happened automatically. It seems counterintuitive that you could turn it off intentionally, but you can. The research is strong on this. So how do you do it? If you've been to yoga, they teach diaphragmatic breathing. It's just breathing, put one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach. If you take a deep breath and the hand on your chest moves, that actually makes you more stressed and anxious. That's like what happens when you have a panic attack. But if this hand stays still and the hand on your stomach moves in and out, now you're breathing from your diaphragm. That's the kind of breath that has been proven to calm your brain and your amygdala down. Ask any athlete that's in a high pressure situation, games on the line, the best athletes know how to calm their brain and their body down, right? If you're trying to shoot a free throw, you've got all this adrenaline in your body, your shots are going to go long every time. When I used to coach my kids in rec basketball years ago, I had these kids that just get so stressed, man, during big games. That try to take a free throw and like hit the backboard and bounce back behind them because they've got so much energy. So I would tell them, hey, take some deep breaths. Sometimes I'd make them stand a foot behind the free throw line because I knew when they let go of that ball there was going to be more energy behind it. The best athletes know how to calm all that down so that they can just sort of execute like a free throw or like hitting a baseball. They can execute it with the same energy level, the same amount of strength and force, and that only happens when you're calm. Cam Newton was the quarterback at Auburn, and I don't know if you guys will have to help me on this. Was it like 15 years ago? I hate to even think about how old I am. And they had the game against Alabama where they came back the last 6 seconds of the game and won. It was an amazing comeback, right? And they interviewed Cam Newton. I'll never forget it. They said, Cam, how did you do that? You just seem so poised. It was an amazing display of just calm and peace in the midst of an incredibly tense, high-pressure situation. And Cam looked at the camera, and he said, I just looked at my teammates, and I told my teammates, we just need to stay calm and play our game. And I thought, oh my gosh, man, that guy just gave everyone the secret to anxiety management. That game, if you're an Auburn or Alabama fan, you understand this better than other people. You can't get more pressure than that game. But that elite athlete knew how to breathe his way through and calm his brain and his body down. You got to figure that out if you're ever going to manage anxiety. Sounds too easy, sounds too simple. It's not. It's actually really hard to do in the moment. And you're never going to do it if you wait until you're anxious. You've got to practice this before you're anxious. It's got to be a part of your life. It's got to be a part of your routine. I like the 4-7-8 technique for breathing. And all that really is you inhale for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. There's some new research on inhaling for 4 seconds, and then right at the end of that inhale, you take just like a quick gasp. So you go, and that last little bit gets more oxygen in, and then you hold it for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. You let all the air out of your lungs, and you can even say when I start to talk about it, even my voice, the tone and tenor starts to get real calm because I know what happens when people breathe like that. Finally, if you're ever going to get a hold of anxiety, you've got to attack in the battleground of your mind. Once your brain is calm and the amygdala is calmed down, the frontal lobe is coming back online, then you can think through your anxiety. Then you can begin to kind of play those mental games with yourself to say, okay, what am I going to do with the fact that I can't control people? What am I going to do with the fact that I'm ready to walk into this restaurant and I feel like all eyes are going to be on me and I don't like my outfit? That mental gymnastic, that's the ultimate answer, right? Because a lot of what you're doing when you're looking for freedom from anxiety and executing the mental side of this is releasing outcomes. There's incredible power to just releasing people, what they think, releasing whether or not you win or lose, releasing whether or not it's perfect or not. You have to release outcomes and focus on just the healthy process, right? I'm going to do my best. I'm going to walk in. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be loving. That's all I can do. And I'm going to let people be who they are. And if they're having bad days and they're going to be snarky and they're going to make fun of me behind my back or say critical things or judge me or not talk to me, that's kind of on them. I just can't. I'm done controlling people. That mental gymnastic, that's the ultimate guide to anxiety management. You're renewed when you transform your mind. So if you really want to get a hold of this, open a note in your phone, and when you start to feel anxious, practice the grounding techniques, the breathing techniques, kind of get present in this moment with a calm body and a calm brain, and then start to just sort of text yourself or outline in your phone in a note, what am I telling myself right now? Because the thoughts that you're having are generating the anxiety, because that's where that feeling of I'm at risk, that's where it comes from. Does that make sense? Like you're only anxious because you're seeing this situation, whatever you're dealing with, as I'm at risk. I'm vulnerable. I can't control what comes next. All of which might be true, but that's the very process that sustains and creates anxiety in your life. So if you want full freedom from anxiety, long term, it's shifting your thought life right in the moment of anxiety. All right, so I told you when we started this, we would not get through a whole lot, right? I gave everything I outlined for you, those three pieces: grounding, relaxation, and thought stopping, thought management. That is the treatment for anxiety. But we don't have time to go into all of it today. I wanted to give you those teasers, right? If you want to dig into this, you really want freedom from stress and anxiety, let me give you a path. What can you do beyond what we've talked about today? Number one, get on the LiveWell coaching platform. Go to livewell-coaching.com. Get on the app on your iPhone, and we have mindful moments right in the store. So if you go to the marketplace, the mindful moments are free. If you don't have the subscription yet, I know you're getting the subscription. If you don't have it yet, you should be able to access that, and those will teach you some of the breathing techniques. All right, so we can start there. Those will teach you some of the grounding techniques. There's videos and audios there that just will give you a head start. You can click them on your phone whenever you need to, and I would highly encourage you to practice those things regularly, at least once a day. All right, so there's some help there for you that will allow you to just fully understand how to begin to build those neural pathways of relaxation in your brain and your body. Also, if you go to the website, you can access on the homepage some audio files where I teach you, I think it's like 20 minutes, where I teach you active relaxation and passive relaxation. So that's just 20 minutes of me teaching you how to calm your entire brain and body down using breathing and like the ability to focus on each muscle group and calm it down. And then finally, if you want to dig into that third domain from today, that idea of challenging your negative thoughts and beginning to adjust the way you see the world and helping yourself begin to see the world as not so risky and not so vulnerable, and I'm not going to live in the future any longer in what I can't control. There's a course called Stress Relief for Life. You can get it on the website, you can get it on the app. Guys, I'm telling you, it's pretty awesome. It goes through everything we just talked through, but it's probably, I think it's maybe 15 hours worth of content. And I will put you through session by session. Every day you'll have something to listen to, and then some homework that you can execute on. And I can't guarantee you much, but man, I'd be willing to guarantee you, if you take some time and you go through Stress Relief for Life and that entire course and get through the whole thing, at the end of that, you're going to have some skills that you don't have right now about how to manage your stress and anxiety. So, all right, guys, I wish we had a lot more time to go over this today. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak into your life. And I hope that you leave this with a deep desire today and always to get healthy, stay healthy, and live well.